All right, thank you. We're back in session. This meeting to discuss what's going on in weed and mosquito world. Okay. I heard you had a plan.
I think I do, Commissioner.
Okay. This is getting scary here. When I say, I think I do, uh-oh. Well, if you'll just look over here for a minute.
Okay. Well, proposed, and this is where we're at.
This is where you're at? This is proposed, okay.
Proposed. Sorry.
I thought this said new position 8. You want 8 new positions? You are, just get out.
Well, if I ask for 8, can I get 6?
I was like,
You're learning.
little slow tonight, like I said.
Well, we had a lady in here yesterday, and I said, you worked 4 10s. It's proven that 5/8 are more productive. So what discussion you want to have?
It didn't go over very well. Went downhill from there. Yeah, 8 new positions. Wow.
Pretty awesome. So we were asked Kyle Burmester, Bannock County Public Works, here with Tyson Coster, Assistant Public Works Director. So we had visited with you earlier on what would be the best way to work the noxious weed and the mosquito abatement department. We had looked at maybe doing a temp, still going with the noxious weed, mosquito abatement supervisor that was a joint job task, or that person supervised both departments. That's what's been going on. And it was kind of told that a recommendation would be to look at getting them split up. We're looking really close, and Christy will tell us more on numbers probably after she reviews some of it and see what we could do.
I don't know, when you throw her, hey, look at this for the first time. I hope that's it. I'll get you the pen.
Well, we were looking at it, that we're looking at what we needed without as much looking at the money part of it.
Okay.
The one part that we looked at money-wise is with what we had come up with, the plan of having it the way it was with the person being over both departments. We had kind of come with another full-time position, and that's what we had kind of worked up numbers-wise, right, Christy?
Yes, before.
Was that, before, was the one more full-time position.
Yeah.
What we did instead of that is broke it into the one supervisor in each department. And we did a lot of talking with weed and a lot of working on it, but we don't feel that one person in the weed department can get it done right now with our temps.
Mm-hmm.
She's got one there currently, and that is sporadic, and we've got 3 hired. And so it's just been, she's trying to run, and it's just running her ragged. With the mosquito, it's a little bit different. That guy, that one person, if he had to, he could do a lot of that work. And hopefully out of the 3 temps, maybe he'd have one good one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I feel comfortable with that. But with the weed department, I feel there should be a second full-time person.
Okay.
Because if we spray our road system twice in a year, we're spraying about 1,600 miles. And the temps we've had, it's just hard to, sometimes we luck out. Well, the only ones that we've had any luck with.
Don't want them spraying ester very close to a vegetable patch and
Well,
wiping it all out.
that's the thing, and that's why we like to try to keep a close supervision. There's some things they can do, but that it's a pretty good liability to us sending a summer or a temp kid, or we try to get the best we can get, but with what we've been getting, it's kind of nerve-wracking to let them have a lot of leeway when they're spraying these chemicals out there.
This year's been super tough. We started out, we set up 3 interviews off the get-go. No one showed. Opened it back up, had 2 more applications, set up interviews. 1 showed, so we hired him. At that point, we were looking for a body, and that's where we're at. We have got 2 more that returned, but the one has since told us he can only work 2 days a week.
The ones not going up.
Yeah. The world we live in right now.
It's unfortunate.
Not fun. Okay. Dan, why don't you go ahead and join us up here? We've,
We're using your licenses right now, aren't we?
Yes, sir.
Just for the mosquito side.
Oh, but still, it's somebody that has had more
So
more
Kathy's-
involvement in the department, I think, than.
So we have all the
Kathy's
licenses
license,
inside the
everything.
health department.
okay, that was a question that we had. And then the other thing that we've talked about, and I'll just turn it over to you, Commissioner Hunt, you talked to Dan a little bit about the outside and inside.
okay. The thought that we talked to Dan about, and talked to Kyle a little bit about yesterday as well, is moving all maintenance under Dan, and we have an indoor and an outdoor maintenance, and then potentially using Dan as a supervisor for noxious weed and mosquito. And Dan, I don't know, I haven't really talked with you about that. I'm assuming you've heard through the grapevine that was kicked around.
Yeah, well, I just heard a little bit.
What's
about
your thoughts on something like that?
I'm up for whatever you guys want to do.
Okay, you cannot use the "I'm up for whatever you want to do" answer, because this is kind of a. I mean, there's a natural synergy with them being in road and bridge, but then there's also something to say about if it's more of a maintenance type function. I mean, there is a discussion there. There is the public works part of it, but then there's also the maintenance aspect of it. There are some things that way that make sense to me on both sides, and I think a lot of it goes to time management for Dan. How much are we going to put on his plate if we move that? You guys, I mean, right now, you guys have capacity because Public Works, you have a senior administrative assistant that I'm assuming you're rehiring as soon as it's available, and then you have Bobette that's already there as well. And there's 2 of you guys that are there, and so it makes a lot of sense that we're not. I mean, because I'm assuming if it went to Dan, you would have to have probably an assistant sooner or later, because if you're going to do inside maintenance, outside maintenance, mosquito, you're getting to the point now that we would probably have to do that, correct?
I would assume so. And I have a question for Christie. Based on Kyle's proposed, who would be the weed superintendent or the superintendent that we're required to have?
On the weed?
Well, we're required to have a superintendent, right? And it's for weeds.
I would say Kathy.
Okay. So
She's got the licensing, and
She's the one that's doing it.
She's the one that's doing it. She goes to the weed, all the different meetings and stuff like that. And it would kind of work how with our last position the same kind of way. Then they pass that up. If it's going to be a grant, that's when our admin takes over all that other stuff, the record keeping, the bills. We have to keep records of weeds, to how much chemical went to. There's a lot of admin to them departments. Is one, and I feel that we have if we utilize that staff in Public Works, that between them two, we have, we'll have we can cover it very well.
Okay. And then the question I had for you, and Kyle and I were talking about this last night, and it still wasn't clear in my head. So, given the way they're currently structured and what he's proposing here with 2 11s and the 8 pay grades, does that leave them kind of neutral to where they're at now, or does it change it substantially?
I'll have to vote.
Okay.
Especially if you want me to look at next year, because those numbers aren't in my budget book.
Okay.
Right.
Those were just proposed and they're downstairs, and I'm not prepared to answer that right now.
Okay, that's fine. So let
No
me,
pens.
let me rephrase the question. Just kind of sticking your finger to the wind. Smell test. Does the 12 and the 10?
It's gonna be more.
So you're,
I need to look.
Okay.
I don't want to.
you're not going to give me a smell test?
No.
Okay.
So
Because
just,
if
just
I'm
going by
wrong-
what you said earlier when we talked about budget-wise, from a 10 to an 11 would be 7%.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you told us. So there's 14%
Right.
plus
Plus the 8.
the 8.
And in Mosquito's budget for next year, all we have is 50% of a grade,
12.
This is grade 12
12.
supervisor.
and then, we have what, 14,000 or 11,000 in there?
Mm-hmm.
Which was the leftover money from property taxes, so I'm not sure that,
And then
but we'll have to look.
Okay, right.
And were you budgeting in that employee that time that we were kind of looking at for like a 6 or whatever?
No.
That potential
That
new operator?
that didn't pass the commission.
That was the question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't get that
Yeah.
answered for you, so, yeah, okay.
Had I known that was floating around, I could have tried to be a little more prepared.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Christie, this was.
Right.
I think this is a working document, because this is the,
And actually, we can talk more about that on Thursday when we're talking about the other stuff with budget too.
If it's posted as budget, yes. I don't know that it's posted, I
Can't
don't
remember
know
if it
how
was
it's posted.
I don't know either how I talked to it.
And I don't,
hey, Christie, this is the first time I've seen it too, so don't feel bad. I'm just letting you know.
Honestly, I mean, because of budget, we haven't gone in depth
Correct.
about this other position. I like this setup a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I do. So it wouldn't matter if we just okayed it right now. Look at the finances on it and see how comparable we are. But if, look at this direction, and then it wouldn't matter who they actually end up reporting to. Right now, I'd like them just to go ahead and report to Kyle. Just simply because we made some changes kind of hastily last year up at the wellness complex, and it bit us.
Well, and I
And
think-
and I'm not, I want to look at the full picture.
And I think too, what it would give you as well is with this operating picture, it would give us some time then with them operating, because they have their administrative assistant and that stuff, to understand what is the full administrative reporting and what was going on, right? I mean, because last year we had somebody else that was the buffer, or supposedly the buffer between this and that. And so with that going away, is that something then that would require, okay, if we move that, well, we're talking we'd have to have an admin assistant and a bunch of other stuff. Or, yeah, really, these guys can actually, Kathy and whoever, so the position.
We have a 80 to 90% down on what that admin is from last year, but, you know, I could get you kind of that amount of
So
time.
my other question would be, what added responsibilities are we putting on Kathy and this other supervisor that they didn't already have, and is that the reasoning for bumping them up to an 11?
So, you want to say anything?
Well, with changing Kathy's position, so before the mosquito abatement mosquito and noxious weed supervisor did all the meetings, went to the grant meetings, the spray board meetings and that. He went to those, and Kathy just strictly stayed, she was more of a working supervisor. She stayed in the field with the guys. So with moving her to this, she's gonna have a lot more of that to take care of and do.
She's gonna be taking on
And
more.
that's the reason we're hiring another full-time person too, is to pick up some of them duties. I'm just trying to say,
She's taking
how much
on
are
a
we
little
adding
more.
on or taking away from her to justify another bracket?
You know, and the argument that I made with those two last night is, in my mind, both of these are like 6-month positions. Because they're really only busy through the summer months when you're spraying weeds and looking for mosquitoes, and then after that, what are you doing?
Because where that conversation came up, if you look across the board, if you're going to do it as not on a performance, but this is what we're paying people to supervise, they'd be closer to a 12. So we were talking that if you were looking at the chart and where they were at on that, they'd be looking closer to the same duties as a 12. But then we got in the discussion of they have 6 months, and I feel I can justify that these guys have 6 months, so they're working the hardest. There is stuff going on through the winter, but they don't get to go home.
Well, and that's where I'd come back. Mosquito supervisor doesn't even have anybody the other 6 months. I mean, one person.
Right.
And then if we do this way, then the weeds would at least have one person that they are supervising. But that's, when you're comparing it, it's more than just titles. And like I say, if it's 6 months and you don't have anybody under you, and then you have one person under you, it's a whole lot different than some of your other supervisors that have,
Yeah.
8 people underneath them.
We've got a jury commissioner that supervises people, and she's a grade 10. So,
One thing we looked at there too is the licenses they do carry.
True. Well, I would say
but your
Christie is,
assistant weed control supervisor carries a license, and she's a grade 10. So, I'm just throwing devil's advocate stuff at you, to think about.
You go, girl.
Well, and that could be a thing for HR too, that we go
Yeah.
through HR on what that grades,
And you could look at the code section too, it has some preliminary duties that they're supposed to do that they're looking to.
For the weed supervisor.
The weed superintendent.
What about the mosquito doesn't have a code section that applies specifically to it, right? And that's where I would say probably, now, jury, you still can make the argument though too, because jury has some very specific code sections that they must fall under, but the jury supervisor is actually not the one required to perform it, it's actually the office, the clerk. So there's some supervision, but this is a person where we're saying, whoever that superintendent's gonna be, you're the one that's liable for this. Where I would probably say that might justify a little bit different look, but I still don't think it would be like.
That might be where the 11 plays in.
Yeah, and I think, but you know what I mean, though, but I don't see it being higher than that. I don't see and that was the argument that I had kind of come back on the 12 as the supervisor, because I mean, in this situation, really, you have a full-time and then a bunch of temps. I don't know, that's a bunch of, but really, how many months out of the year if you just have one person that you're supervising and you're at 12, and I get that, but that's where, like in this format, this new one, okay, get that, the mosquito abatement supervisor, they just have 3 temps behind them. They have to have licensure, but they're not a required entity. Does that make sense? And so for me, I would probably, I know you want them equal for parity, that's probably why you did that, 11 and 11. I mean, do you have to have an 11 and 11 or 11 and 10?
Well, and honestly, we just went, because we don't know where that should be, as what we have already, and tried to figure it off of that.
well, what I'd like, Christie, is you to get us some numbers. And it's easier for me to make a decision with numbers in front of me too. That's part of the picture for me. Like I say, there's, I know across the board it just sounds good, but there's also the 11-month deal, and who do you supervise? What's your responsibility for 6 months out of the year?
One thing that we talked about too, that there was some of the smaller equipment and stuff that was originally, when this was all set up, that they were going to take care of in the winter. get the calibrations and that done. That's something I would like to see start happening, because for the past 5 years, we get into the season and everything's been serviced and that, but the calibration and the side that the department, the brain of the department should have down, we go into the seasons and we got temps show up and nothing's calibrated, nothing's ready to go.
Yeah.
Or like this year, we sent our foggers up a month into the season to have them certified for calibration.
And they should have been done during the winter time.
So to me, that's what the winter time should become, is that stuff.
No argument here.
Yeah.
And then that brings up one other thing, the title, equipment operator.
The only reason why I was thinking of something to that aspect is our equipment operators are required to have a CDL, so then he or she would be available
Push some snow.
for some snow.
We just need to
Okay.
make sure that if they're used for
That's
pushing
why I
snow,
used
that it
that
has to
term.
come out of that budget to push snow, and that they're not getting paid to push snow out of the mosquito line.
So
or
we
the
do
weed
that,
bug
we do
line.
that with landfill and road and bridge. We have a line that if they're working for
Mhm.
another department, that they're getting paid out of that department.
I'd still, I like that, but I'd like that in the job duty. There's a difference to me between an equipment operator and this position.
That's right.
To me, it's just,
I would probably say like
it's not
like
apples and apples.
how Scott did up at the wellness complex, like an attendant, or it's a junior position or something that you can hire this person and they're not required to have a CDL, but it is highly, part of their, how would you say that? It's highly encouraged, because you might be able to find somebody that doesn't necessarily have a
What was the
CDL.
new title in Indigent that we just moved out of? She's in both
Oh,
departments.
The rover, the floater.
She's a deputy treasurer, deputy clerk.
Yeah.
But
Well, I just-
maybe what you could do is maybe you could take your weed control operator and then just upgrade that job description to include the CDL. That's by the grade.
Because then they could be
Because
moved,
right now,
yeah.
that's grade 5.
And that doesn't require a CDL as a weed operator.
I don't know.
I don't think
I've
it
not
does.
seen it.
No,
But they
not-
could
not as a
take that
staff.
position if that's what they want to see.
Call it a weed operator.
Or you could,
Weed operator. They hang out with Cheech and Chong much?
you could work off of that job description, throw a CDL in it, and then just come up with the title for it so that it would fit what your needs are. You wouldn't have to start from the,
But I like the forward thinking and pushing stone stuff,
and if
that
we,
direction.
granted, we're a little late in the budget year to make a floater for a position like this, unless you want to amend Thursday's agenda to include budget discussion.
I think we will anyway. We'll amend that. We'll just-
I just looked at the agenda and it covers what we need for the other topic,
Mhm.
but not for this.
No.
So you're probably gonna have to proceed on that. And if you do that, that'll give me some time to put this together for numbers. And then, pending a discussion and decision if you wanted to make that a 50-50 position. I could run that scenario going at Wooden Bridge. Half the time, or even if it's 5 months.
Oh, the
Equipment.
weed
The-
operator,
Yeah.
Specialist.
special.
Whatever that is. But would you want that in Roden Bridge, how many months? Just so just like 5 months or 6 months or November, December, January, February, March?
I said no more than 5.
Well, because
It just
I would
depends on
say
when
4,
snow
'cause
comes.
during the,
they
during the
can
winter,
start
I do
helping.
want them, like you said, I want them doing the maintenance on all their spraying equipment and stuff too, so.
Yeah, so maybe the biggest parts of the winter, like when it really starts, like Christmas Day on.
Christmas Day is the trigger.
It is.
So I'm thinking more like.
Anybody's birthday
like
or holiday. Boom.
3 or 4.
3 or 4 months?
Yeah.
Okay,
I'd probably put it 3.
and then that would give
'Cause
plenty
then,
of
like,
time.
Commissioner Morgan says we can utilize that person to help with, because they're the ones gonna be spraying them with that equipment in the spring, so it's good to have a knowledge of how to repair it and how to work on it.
And then in your scenario, let's look at both 10 and 11 for the supervisor.
For both positions, or just for the mosquito side?
Look at both. We'll know. It'll give us a comparison. I mean, we just increased weed by, instead of 6 months, we're at 9 months.
Well, yeah, we truthfully should be, because if we can get back to a good program, we're gonna be doing fall sterile up until we have too much snow in that.
Another thing we thought of utilizing a little bit is in them fall months, having some mowing, some help mowing. We have a mower that we utilize in the road and bridge, but most of them, they head out when school starts. A lot of the people we hire is bus drivers and stuff like that. So we could maybe have we could use this employee while them are gone in them fall months or maybe some early spring months.
So it must be 4 months now instead of 3. I mean, you're adding more details.
Well, that can all go back to it, because the mower was originally under weed.
So that one's kind of a back and forth because that's a maintenance of the road.
Are you mowing weeds though? That's the question. Are you remediating those weeds?
And I think we could actually go back far enough, and I think the weed department purchased the mower. So all that was all originally part of the weed department, but nothing, it wasn't getting done.
It wasn't
So we
been done,
pulled it in the road and
so
bridge.
previously it was pulled back in and somebody got it done.
I say, there's gonna be more answers, and that's why I think
Yeah.
if we take this step by step a little bit.
So it'll be 3 months road and bridge, 9 months mosquito. For that,
No.
or, I mean, for Noxious.
Okay.
For the weed.
Sorry. Okay. Right?
Yes.
Okay. And then do grade 10 and 11 for the supervisors.
Yes.
Okay. Can do that. And leave the temps with whatever the budget says. So you don't need to increase or decrease that, correct?
Well, we were decreasing 1 temp on the weed department. 'Cause it
So if
had-
we
it
add
had
the
3 and we cut it to 2.
So we could take
that's
from
part
there.
of it.
Yeah.
Do you have that dollar now of what you would take out of?
7,800. Is it about percent, so is it 76, 78?
Depends on the dollar amount you're paying them.
It's 14. It's 13.97.
92.
$14.93, grade 6.
Grade 5.
Grade 5 is 13.95.
Okay, so grade 5. Minus 1 in Noxious for extra help, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, say Noxious.
Oh.
So, let's go into executive session for a minute. And we'll talk about,
Mr. Chairman, I move that we enter into executive session under Idaho Code 74-206, 1A and B to discuss matters of personnel. Yes.
yes,